Hey guys, I just wanted to address a little bit about the prong collar that I'm using in most of the upcoming videos and some of the videos that I've already done with the puppies. I know that the prong collar is quite controversial among certain groups out there, especially in social media. I think that's the new whipping boy for the cult of fake dog trainers, and that's okay. That's not going to interfere with the way that we do business here and have been doing business here successfully for a very long time. I'm not going to apologize for the equipment or the tools that we use because none of them are used in a negative way. None of them bring pain. None of them bring any type of anguish. None of them bring any type of emotional or mental instability to the dog whatsoever. Everything that we do here is intended to build the dog by degrees into ultimately being a good, solid working dog. So with that said, I want to go into just a little bit about the way that I'm actually using the collar. The collar in the way that I'm using it is really nothing more than a way for me to communicate with the dog. We could say that it's a wired technology, an old technology rather than a wireless technology like we would use with an e-collar. The same principle that applies with the e-collar we're using with the prong collar. Rather than using a button to give small impulses to the dog, aka a tap, I'm using a light tap with the string that I'm using attached to the collar here in these instances. This is nothing more than a way to communicate with our dog. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's a great way to communicate with the dog. I can stand here for half a day and give you bonuses of using either the e-collar or a prong collar, regardless of what some out there want to say. I prove it, not every day, but many days of the week. I prove this through the dogs that we're training here, as do many, many other trainers that employ the use of these tools in the pursuit of giving the dog his best life. At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, and in some instances, we're trying to fulfill needs that we have with working dogs. We can't lose sight of the fact that ultimately at the end of the day, regardless of what the outcome is for the dog, we want them to live their best life. Okay, so when we're using the prong collar in the way that I'm suggesting it be used, in the way that I've been using it for many, many years, with that said, I have to say that I just discovered the plastic prong collar that I'm using now only a few years ago. Prior to that, I used the Hermsprenger, a typical prong collar that we're all familiar with, and they all work. I like the little plastic one because it's less fiddly and it gives a nice even pressure on the neck, and there are no sharp prongs on it, especially when I'm working with the puppy. I don't necessarily want the intimidation factor of the prongs with the young puppy. I just want the puppy to feel the pressure is all that we ever really want. I don't have any interest in creating pain for the dog because this is counter to productive training. So we don't want to create pain and we don't want to create any kind of resentment or conflict with the collar. It's just used for communication. The tap that you see me using in the videos when I'm interacting with the dog using that collar, that tap is typically used in the manner of yes, do that right there. I can signify to the dog, just like we do with the clicker and marker training. I'm making that signal, instead of using a clicker, I'm using the tap with the collar to make that signal to the dog, that right there, that you're doing, that's good. Or the dog can also interpret if I'm saying to the dog, don't do that. That's a different tap. And the dog quickly assimilates this language, and he speaks it very fluently, very quickly, because the dog's very adaptable. And most of the videos I like to point out the fact that you can see throughout the progression of the training how the dog requires less and less and less pressure in order to achieve the behavior, until ultimately zero pressure is required. Once we get to the point where zero pressure is required, we know that we're going in the right directions, no ifs, ands, or buts. So this is really results-oriented training. When we're using equipment in a proper manner, we're shooting for results. We're shooting for getting good results without bringing any kind of injury, harm, or inflicting any kind of pain to the dog. We want to have a conflict-free working environment between the trainer and the dog. And as long as we can keep that relationship free from conflict, the equipment that we use is really irrelevant, because the dog is going to be focused on the trainer, not the equipment. So going forward, I'm going to use all of these tools. Whatever tools that I think are needed to get to an end and do that safely and humanely with the dog, that's the way I'm going to go. I don't have a philosophical kind of approach to using equipment. I just use what's needed. It's a very practical and very usable approach. It's been very successful for me and hundreds and thousands of other trainers throughout the years, and let's stay with what works and don't fix what's not broken. I'm going to come back and I'm going to have some up-close details about how I'm using the collar and also how I'm using the leash and the collar combination, and I'm going to try to do some close-ups, and I'll slow-mo them when I edit the video so that it's clear how the collar's being used. Guys, I really appreciate you tuning in and checking out my videos. I really appreciate all the great messages that you guys, so kind, or so many people out there, man. I just can't say how much I appreciate these wonderful messages. I love all you guys, man. All I want to do is for all of us to be happy and train some dogs together and create the best environment and the best life for the dogs that we can. I'll see you again soon. Thank you. Brian Anderson with the Canine Dragon Foundation.